Hey, folks, it's Lindsey Huddleston with SPS back in the building. Another episode of the SPS Edge Show, episode 21. Lucky 21. I think we've grown up now, Terry. We've gone from being underage to 21 now. You look at our new setup. We're coming up in 2021. Very fitting. I want to thank Coach Orlando Watkins. You guys always hear us talking about him. We are Nassau out in the world. He's Houston holding us down. He's helped us grow with our new platform. And also a new guest will be introduced to you guys shortly. But Terry, how have you been since the last time we got together on the SPS Edge Show?
I've been doing well. I've been semester starting up for school. Settling back into a new routine, different class times and stuff like that. We were off for 3 weeks, so going back into the study schedule and going back on my study group. So I've been doing well. It's a good transition from a huge break, different from high school break. I mean, we got done in mid-December and then we're back on into it. So it's been going well.
No, that transition is important. You've been doing a great job with it. I want to talk about the topics we have for the show. It seems like we're never short on content, and I want to say how much I appreciate you for always helping bring great content, but more importantly, bringing some substance to the things we discuss. I mean, wow. Next week, there's talk not only of a major a second insurrection, if you will, taking place at the U.S. Capitol. There's been talk that throughout all 50 states that people will be bringing their grievances, if you will, in the form of armed militiamen to challenge the states. Andy Shore, mayor of Lansing, has already requested the National Guard to be at the state capitol here in Lansing, which is a stone's throw away from where you and I are. But that's part of what's been going on, this overall thing about, this outgoing president who has been impeached for the second time. Other things we'll talk about. Bill Belichick was in the news for potentially receiving the Medal of Freedom, which he probably smartly declined, Terry. We'll make sure we touch on that and talk about that. We talk about college football. There's a new college football champion. I know you're not really big on this topic because the team that won wasn't your team. They were not your Ohio State Buckeyes, although they played great for their shortened season. But it was Alabama and Nick Saban who did that. And we'll definitely want to talk about excellent versus great. And then we'll also get into some comments that Tom Izzo made about Nick Saban when I talked to him just yesterday regarding his historic feat of 7 national championships. Then we'll talk a little college basketball. We'll introduce our new friend to the show. I call him our Vegas insider, my guy John, holding it down, former coach, really well connected with the ins and outs of sports as it relates to the Vegas Lions. He's going to come on, and I guess we'll match him up with you, Terry, a little young and old, a little analytical thing versus some old school, and me to here keep it together to give you some ideas. We talk about our Big Ten tips. So with no further ado, we'll keep rocking with the show to stay on time. Again, Atlanta, I want to thank you. It's a beautiful platform you've helped us with, and all those who are hearing us in Facebook world, thank you. And most importantly, shout out to the Streets of Talking Podcast Network. My guy Don Houston, my guys Clarence, Sumo is number love, but holding us down. That's Clarence Barbour holding us down. So with that, they're talking about in 50 states that armed individuals are going to be coming because there's a continuation of this lie of a stolen election. What do you think is going to happen, Terry?
Yeah, I read an article, I think it was by Fox, talking about the Southeast Michigan militia coming this Sunday and having their demonstration, and they mentioned that they didn't want any violence unless it was needed, like in a way to defend themselves. And by law, militias are illegal, and it's illegal to have one here. But it's disappointing because it's not only a militia is not only supposed to protect civilians. They're doing the opposite. They're scaring civilians. Like they're talking about don't be around the Capitol, stay away from downtown. I mean, I think if any protest or any demonstration that talks about you staying away from them, don't get near them, watch out, anything that has a warning or a warning well before it happened, it's a sign of terrorism, and they're trying to bring terror to those lawmakers, the senators, the new president, Joe Biden, coming in. I mean, they're trying to bring some fear and hopefully get what they want, but we don't know how long this is going to last. That was my biggest concern, the inauguration. Like, what is going to happen when Joe Biden gets sworn into office? And I knew this was going to come. I mean, I talked to just about anybody around me. They knew some point of division was going to occur because we let this man stay in office for 4 years. So hopefully, things are peaceful. The National Guard is here. Hopefully, whatever they're going to do, it remains peaceful. I recommend that people stay away, stay home, and stay safe. This is something not to be reckoned with.
No, you make a good point, man. And on top of that, speaking of Michigan in particular, putting on my old hat as a politician or being in politics, and our guest knows about that, and so does Orlando. The Michigan legislature, I should say the Michigan Capital Commission, just voted for a ban on open carry, meaning you cannot walk in with a weapon visibly present. But more importantly, that impacts the long guns. Now, people may turn around and say, "Well, Terry, Lindsay, they can still carry their concealed weapon." Yeah, that's true. But these dudes don't want to come up here with no pistols. They want to go and bring their long guns for more of a psychological impact because of the shock that it brings when they show up with these AR-15s and these things. I know that as a former Marine and a gun owner myself, I know what it's like when you got that long boy in your hand and the intimidation that you can put upon people. However, if those are illegal and you're not allowed to bring those in, it changes. So what you can see a bunch of guys with their vest on, with multiple handguns, totally different type of scenario. Not to say a semi-automatic handgun like a Glock or something like that couldn't be just as deadly, but it takes away the power that they think they have with that. Not to stay on this topic too long, because to be honest, it's a worthy topic because it is, historic and topical. But I don't want to give credence to these people who are on the other side of this argument, Terry. It's like this, when those, terrorists did storm the Capitol, one after the other. What did they have to say when they finally got caught? Oh, I didn't know what to do. What do we do now? They don't have a plan. This is just angst. They're just acting out all this angst. And I take it all the way back to the Cheerios commercial several years ago that people have said had changed things when they saw that brown baby in the Cheerios commercial.
Oh, yeah.
Aspect of the browning of America. And Cheerios being just as a staple as apple pie, and a lot of these guys in their racist ways just could not take that. And to someone's point, a good buddy of mine, shout out to Deshaun Tate, he made a good point. A lot of these guys who up here fussing got black grandbabies. You know what I'm saying? You at the Capitol tripping, talk about you want your country back, and you don't want to see this browning of America when you're in fact a part of that. So I think there was enough to talk about. We'll keep an eye on what's going on. We will be able to talk about this in our next episode 22, which will be next Thursday. It will be after the inauguration, which I think is going to be a peaceful transition of power, especially because the National Guard is there, ready to go.
Right.
Those individuals, particularly those white men, have to think about, will I fire upon my fellow citizen? If my life is in danger, I'm going to have to. And I think this time, sleeping on that Capitol floor is going to put them in a position. And also, too, the way that perimeter is set up at the Capitol, these guys can't even get to the Capitol. You can't even get access to the Capitol. So with that, I think that's enough for that topic. We touched it. Bill Belichick, do you think he did the right thing by declining to take the Medal of Freedom opportunity from his good friend Donald J. Trump, the president?
Well, I think he definitely did the right thing, but I think it was for a reason that we all probably know. Because Trump is an opportunist. He finds any kind of way to get some kind of leverage to his benefit, and I think him giving Belichick that honor, I think he was trying to use him as a pawn. And a guy like Belichick, a guy like Belichick is not going to allow that. He's not going to let you use that. And I think he did the right thing. And no matter how high the honor is, I think there's some kind of respect and because I think Belichick doesn't agree about what happened. And I think that's part of the reason why he's upset at his friend or whatever he wants to call him now. But he's upset about that. And so trying to use him, to be like, oh, he agrees with me. I'm giving this guy, a great NFL coach, Hall of Fame coach, arguably one of the best to ever do it, a Medal of Freedom. He's trying to think that it would help his public image a little bit. But Belichick wasn't having that. And a lot of people think it was due to like him not getting the respect of African-American players, which probably has something to do with it. You got to think about who you're the coach of. Yeah, the NFL has a high population. I can't think of the number, but a high population of African-American players, whether it's practice squad, whether it's active roster, 53-man roster. So he has to think about who he's around and who is he and part of being those African American players.
No, you make a good point, man. And just to follow up 2 points, Donald Trump is definitely using this as another self-serving purpose, because the golfers, Gary Player, who I actually like his game, and Annika Sorensen, that he gave this to, his thing is he gives professional golfers free memberships to his clubs. So that when they come, they can bring all this fanfare. Now, if you give these two well-known golfers the Medal of Freedom, man, that's going to only just build his business and his opportunity when these people come. And I thank Bill Belichick for not accepting that. And I think you're absolutely right, Terry. I think what this comes down to is, how is this going to affect my ability to recruit players? If you're a free agent, all things equal, and you got a chance to go somewhere where you got ownership and management that won't engage in these type of practices compared to this, there you go. And at the end of the day, if there is a real friendship between Donald Trump and Bill Belichick, which I can believe it is, that dates back decades. Also the same with him and the Patriots owner Robert Kraft. With your homies, you say, no, I can't do it. That was the same thing they did when Tom Brady came out supporting Donald Trump early on before the campaign got going, and he had to back off of that relationship because it wasn't good for branding. It wasn't good for these things. So I think I'm glad that Bill Belichick did that. For whatever reason he did it. He didn't need to give credence to that going forward. He would have been used. Moving forward, man, college football. Monday night was probably the latest night of the year for most of us, except that Monday night when we watched the college basketball championship. And I know you were glued to the TV, true Ohio State Buckeye fan. I know that. I don't say that to throw any salt in the wound. But, someone said, and I have to agree, what Alabama did to Ohio State, Terry, is what Ohio State does to everybody else. So the Bullets got bullied finally. And I don't know if that had anything to do with them needing more games, or at the end of the day, let's not forget, this team is coached by Nick Saban. So what do you think about that?
No, I think, it was an overall, amazing performance by Alabama. I mean, Ohio State, they went out and played their best. That's all you can ask for. I mean, as a fan, I kept my head up. We went out and played. We did our best. And, sometimes, like I text you after the game, I was like, sometimes you just have to recognize greatness. Devontae Smith is probably, on record, probably one of the best receivers we've seen in college football. And, I mean, to win the Heisman, the last Heisman winner as a wide receiver was Desmond Howard. So, I mean, just to be in that category with Dez, I mean, you got to be special. And we've seen it. I mean, you think Ohio State prepped on him, but it didn't look like it. I don't know if that's just lack of execution or he's just that dang good. So, I mean, you see him moving around, streaking around. He's not just like an outside threat. We see him in the slot. We see him moving around, throwing little screens to him, little dinks and ducks, getting him moving. And Saban put him in, and Coach Stark, they put him in the best positions to be great. And sometimes you just got to nod your head to a dude and be like, hey, you beat my butt. You know what I mean? You have my number. And I think that's what it was. Alabama is just too good.
Yeah. And they seem to be that way. And also shout out to his size. Talk about, his Heisman Trophy, winning speech when he talked about, don't let size or lack thereof stop you. I mean, he's a small frame guy, but he's just really good and he works really hard. Talking about Nick Saban, I mean, my goodness, 7th national championship. He beat the great Bear Bryant. I mean, dog, when you got a nickname like Bear, that puts you up there like your name is Bear and Tiger. What other people we know that we refer to that are greats are animal names? You know what I'm saying? So to beat the Bear Bryant and do that, I thought it was interesting. So I took advantage of the fact that in our press conference with Michigan State yesterday, I really wanted to be able to take advantage of having Coach Izzo to be able to talk about what was happening with Nick Saban, someone he has a relationship and whatnot. So if you can see this, can you see the screen with the press conference right now, Terry?
I can't see it right now.
Okay, well, let's hold on for a second. I want to make sure I get it up here. I want to share this screen and be able to share this with you in one moment. But I thought it was very interesting what Tom Izzo had to say. And if you give me one moment, we'll do that.
Yeah, I mean, as a, just psychologically thinking, that was the ghost that Saban was chasing, Bear Bryant. I mean, to pass him is good for, not only good for his legacy, but, I mean, as a coach that's been coaching for a while, that's something to add on.
Well, let me add this. Let's see what we got right here. Can you hear this?
Yep.
I know Iowa's on the clock right now, but Monday we all watched Nick Saban win his 7th national championship, historic win. Because of your relationship with him, because of his relationship with Michigan State, I'm just curious, do you guys get inspiration from him? Do your players get inspired by seeing something like that? How does that impact your overall championship culture too?
It's interesting. I always get inspired by Nick. I just appreciate the consistency he's done things with and the class and humility. I mean, he never makes anything about him. If you ask me, he makes it all about his team. But, I mean, there's a great example. We played North Carolina about 10 years ago with Hansborough and Ellington and all of them. There were 4 of them that could have left early. They all came back to win the championship. I heard Nick say something about 7 or 8 guys could have left and came back to win the championship. And when you see that, winning becomes the priority. This day and age, it's a little harder to make winning a priority. Everybody's got, make sure they get their clicks on the social media, or make sure they get their highlights, or make sure that they, get their draft status up. I mean, it's just the way of the world right now. And I think that I told my team to at least watch the pregame, because there's always human interest stories. That receiver, I mean, the class he had dealing with everything. The running back. I mean, those things impressed the heck out of me. And I always say, when you see that happen, you say they got what they deserve. And everybody thinks they got the best players, and they probably do. But best players don't win you games. Players who play the best win you games. And I thought that they demonstrated a lot of that. I was proud of Nick, happy for him to beat Bear Bryant's record and this and that, and records are meant to be broken. Knowing Nick, it matters none. He's probably worried about next year already. But at the same time, I think we could all learn something from the consistency he's brought, because he brings it in recruiting, he brings it in offense and his defense, he gets different coordinators. He's got what I would call a culture there that is second to none, and the culture is about winning. And you listen to the players talk about it. I think it's one of the great sports programs, because winning is the only thing talked about, and that's just not the case all the time. And they've had a few slip-ups there. I mean, I've talked to Nick enough to know that, maybe they end up 9-3, which is a slip-up there. But I mean, where players start worrying about, I mean, you got a guy with a broken frickin' leg, and he wants to play so bad in the game that he plays after having surgery, and he's a pro prospect. You got a pro prospect, the lineman, the center, who wants to go in there. He just had knee surgery, and he puts him in for the last play. I mean, if you really watch that, it doesn't matter if you're in sports. I think for all of us, that's an inspiring, emotional, and Nick deserves some credit, but those players deserve a lot of credit, because they're the ones that put themselves on the line. Even being injured, it just showed winning was more important than their future, and that's not the case much anymore.
That's great. Wow. I mean, what do you say to that? You hear a Hall of Fame coach talk about another Hall of Fame coach that he actually has a relationship with. I mean, that goes back. I mean, let's be honest, that relationship between Tom Izzo and Nick Saban is the reason why Mel Tucker is the coach at Michigan State. Let's not even act as if it's not. And let's not take anything away from Mel Tucker. Shout out to him. But, I had to take advantage of that moment, Terry, because you want to hear greatness talk about greatness. And I thought it was very interesting. It was very interesting that Tom Izzo encouraged his players to watch the pregame show. I never would have thought that. But he's right. There are always these special interest stories to talk about what somebody went through. So you hear a championship coach talk about how important that is. But also, too, I've never heard Tom say this, or maybe I never was in the right mindset to receive it. He said, you don't win because you have the best players. You win when your players play the best. And I can see why he can adopt that attitude, always being a little underrated, always having the challenge of going up against national recruitment compared to, more so Midwest recruiting. And then also him talking about that consistency that Nick Saban had. Nick Saban is back in the office today. I mean, he's talking about 24-hour rule even after national championship. And Terry, I know you as a passionate football player, you can relate. So what do you think about Tom Izzo's comments about Nick Saban?
I think the biggest thing that stuck out to me was the idea of culture. And, and I think the biggest thing with culture is that when he talks about these players coming in, I mean, yeah, they are top high star caliber kind of guys, like 4 or 5 star, but it's a certain attitude that comes with playing at Alabama. And it's something that Ohio State's still striving for, Clemson's still striving for, Notre Dame, all those, high prestige teams are still striving for. I know if I'm a player and I'm headed to Alabama, I know that winning is almost guaranteed. I know what I'm going to get in Alabama, and a lot of that takes work. You got to build that culture, and I think Coach Saban and his demeanor to the game of football, coaching on the field and off the field, he holds his players accountable. He holds them to a certain standard, and we saw that out of Jalen Waddle. A guy who wanted to give his 110%, felt like he was good enough to play, but he's over there fighting, jogging, moving up and down. Pro players are like, dude, chill out, sit out. You don't want to ruin this. This is your ankle. You're a wide receiver. And, I mean, this is a guy that wanted to be out there with his team. You just don't see anything like that in a lot of teams. Guys that are wanting to play. I mean, you see guys sometimes sitting out. Like Florida had a bunch of players sit out, and they lost. They got smacked by that Oklahoma. But Alabama players, you see them, they all want to play. They want to win as a team. A lot of them came back to win the goal. And, winning is almost like water. I mean, it's a need in Alabama, you know what I mean? And so just seeing them come back and want to win together and, hold each other. And Coach Saban holds his players at a high standard. He coaches on them hard, same way Izzo does when he coaches his guys. I mean, it's good to see, someone past that, passing Bear Bryant, the great coach Bear Bryant, passing his win mark. I think is key for him and that culture to still keep going. I don't know how many championships he's going to win.
Well, I'm putting it out here right now on the SPS Edge Show 10. I'm saying that Nick Saban's going to win at least 10. I mean, if you think about it, he's going to be right now. They got Clemson ranked, number 1 going into the next season. But dude, he's not going to stop. And the last thing I'll say about this before we get to our outstanding guest John, who'll be joining us in a moment, is that speaking of those special interest stories, I was watching one of those SEC programs, and one thing I did not know that I think Terry may be a very important key to Nick Saban's drive is that his dad was his role model. His dad was his hero. Coal miner in West Virginia. They came up hard. And a lot of players talk about how they can relate to Coach when he talks about his life stories. However, his dad never got to see him coach. Because of that, they say his friends say that he was kind of been relentless. So I think the reason why Nick Saban is going to be the greatest college football coach in our lifetime, Terry, is because he has no ceiling. The fact that he never was able to get that recognition, if you will, or acknowledgement from his dad means that he's going to go, go, go. I mean, and then how do you compete with that? How do you compete with a ghost, with all due respect? But I think that speaks to his psyche of how he can just go and not let up. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing that I saw today. They were talking about with Coach Urban Meyer looking to coach down there in Jacksonville. They're talking about Coach Urban Meyer looking for another challenge, looking for, something. Because, I mean, this is a guy that stepped out as Florida. He had health issues, takes on Ohio State. That was a new challenge, taking over Luke Fickell in that bad year we had, 6-6, wins a national championship, then leaves, sits out, and he's taking a new challenge. But Nick Saban always seems to find something to keep him going and keep winning. I mean, this is a guy who, before this national championship on Monday, he had 6. I mean, he's tied with Bear Bryant. I mean, he's good. I mean, he's living, he's already known as probably one of the best coaches ever. Really, some people just retire off that. I mean, just knowing that I'm up there. But I think being tied wasn't good enough. He probably won't say that. But, to pass him, some people will say, I'm done. Brady winning 6 rings and, I'll sit out. I'm done. I mean, I'm going to end on the top. But Coach Saban's never going to be satisfied. And I think to have that attitude to never be satisfied and to always find that motivation to keep going and keep striving and pushing himself to the absolute limit, I think that's why he's the greatest coach to ever do it. I mean, he's always going to keep striving no matter how old, when, circumstance. I mean, he won the national championship during COVID. I mean, the man is unstoppable. So,
and I'll say this lastly, and I'm not taking anything from Urban Meyer. His players love him. And I think that personality-wise, I'm not saying that Nick Saban comes off as being more outgoing than Urban Meyer. I mean, I've met Urban Meyer up close, and he can be very standoffish. I'm not saying that Nick Saban can't. But the way you see Alabama players fawn over Nick Saban, like the very final play, you had the center, whose name I forget, had knee surgery, got in for the last snap, and he carried Nick Saban off the field. And for the first time, I didn't see Nick Saban uncomfortable with being emotional. He carried Nick Saban off the field like a little child. And I say this with all due respect. And Nick Saban smiled. And they did ask him, what did you think about that? He said he loved it. So I think that is, part of what makes him great. It's complete self-sacrifice, but we're seeing it. And I think you and I are going to be able to witness 10-plus national championships. So looking at the time, man, we're going to shift from college football. We're going to get to college basketball. We have a great guest I want to introduce to you all who will be supporting us on the SPS Edge Show. It's my guy, John. We go way back. He's a basketball insider. He got a plug to Vegas. He can pick up the phone and connect with anyone, but don't call the show trying to get tips from him. What we do want you to do is check out Big Ten tips, which we're going to talk about. We're going to be putting up the website for that soon. Thank Orlando for getting that going. Well, we can give you guys insight on this Big Ten schedule. Terry, who was serious about what he works on, there is John right there. How you doing, John?
I'm doing great, Lindsay. How about you?
Great. Well, we're happy to bring you in, man. We're happy that you're making time to share with us. So what I was going to do is let our audience know that you and Terry would kind of match up and kind of look at the games that are coming up. Unfortunately, because of the recent COVID announcement, both tonight's game that would have been taking place in about an hour and a half between Iowa and Luka Garza, who's kind of just killing everything going forward, as in Michigan State, won't take place. It's been postponed. Also, Sunday's game against Indiana is postponed. So I'm going to be without some Michigan State basketball for at least 2 weeks. Hopefully they can come back by January 23rd against Illinois. But we can talk about some of those games if they're going to happen. And John, we just want to welcome you to the show. And you want to just share anything about yourself before we get started?
Well, I after listening to you guys, I got an interesting tidbit for you on Nick Saban. I go back with Nick Saban to when he was the D-back coach for George Perlis.
Oh, wow.
Bear Bryant's son owns a bank in Alabama. He guarantees Nick Saban's contract.
Wow. Wow.
Information about Bear Bryant and Nick Saban.
So in other words, you're saying there's a great amount of respect there, and also telling Alabama that no matter what, make sure y'all pay him, and I got the money if you need it.
Absolutely.
Wow. We're benefiting from you being on the show already, John. We appreciate it. You got to keep it up, So with that being said, let's talk about this matchup. We talk about our Big Ten tips. And again, thanks to Orlando Watkins for getting the website up there. And again, thanks to Streets of Talking Podcast Network. You can hear us there on Saturdays and Sundays. Shout out to Don Houston and Clarence Babor. So let's talk about if this game was going to take place tonight. And I'll start with you, Terry. What was your take on the matchup between Michigan State and Iowa?
Well, I know Iowa, they play with an extreme amount of pace. I mean, they lead the league in points scored in the game with 91 points, a little, maybe about 92, 91.9. But also they give up quite a bit of points too. They give up 73.2. So, I mean, they play with a high pace. And I think the way that I've seen MSU excel this year has been with defense leading into transition. So hopefully you can get guys like Rocket, Gabe, and Aaron, guys that have been trouble has had trouble in the half-court offense. So hopefully they get those guys in transition. Guys got Bingham and Gabe hitting shots, and Hauser hitting shots from the outside too, getting those guys going. But Luka Garza, man, he has the most points. He has the most points averaged in a game in the conference so far. Probably, I don't know what he ranks in the nation, but I know it's dang near close at number 1. So I mean, they have to find a way to stop him. Takes team defense. I mean, we saw that last year with Tillman, but a lot of credit goes to the team. I mean, they were all eyes on him. The bench was on him. And I think that in order to beat guys like him and DeSumo coming up with, later in the year, I mean, you got to have team defense. Everyone has to know where that man is on the court, whether it's from the outside. He's proven that he can shoot from out there, and especially inside the paint where he's about unstoppable.
So it sounds like you're giving the edge to Iowa?
I'm going to go MSU. I think these are the games that MSU lives up to. I think, with their tough defense, and Iowa's had their number. MSU has had their number recently, so I think MSU is going to get them.
So the good thing about this, I'm going to go to you, John, and get your perspective, is that because this game isn't played and they're big on rescheduling, which I'm sure they're going to do to be able to get those games in for that tournament access, I'm curious to know that when we revisit this game, if everything will be the same. But, John, give us your take on the Iowa versus Michigan State matchup that would have happened tonight at 9 p.m.
Well, I don't think Iowa can guard me. But they can't defend anybody. I watched them early on against Gonzaga, and they just tore them up. They don't get back on defense. I agree with Terry. If Michigan State could get the ball off the defensive board, that they would fast break Iowa out of the building. And I agreed with Terry. And I was looking at that game in a Vegas way, and I looked at the money line. And to win $100, you had to bet $310 to get Iowa. But if you bet Michigan State, you were going to get a $400 return for a $100 bet in a straight up, that's the money line. So I thought that was the great bet to make. I agree with Terry. I would have taken Michigan State too. And the spread was 8.5. Iowa was giving Michigan State 8.5. But also, Michigan State has beat Iowa 19 out of 20, the last 20 times at the Brez. And when you go back, since McCafferty has come there, Izzo has owned him. Mm-hmm. And soon as Coach Izzo gets to flip Hauser a little bit,
position-wise,
he needs to get – Hauser can't guard me. He's just not defending anybody.
Right.
And he's just getting pushed around. And I think Coach Izzo's trying to get Hauser to be a basketball player instead of a shooter.
Yeah.
And I think he needs to do that for them to take the next level. But, you know, Michigan State has a glaring weakness. They're not producing at the point, and they're not defending the rim.
Yeah.
And that's hurting them. That's why they've lost the games that they've lost early. But if we know one thing about Coach Izzo, he gets things straightened around sooner.
He does. He's great. I want to stay on this for a second. I want to ask a question regarding Luka Garza, and I think I can ask this without people taking offense. And John, with your basketball insight, and Terry, just with your objective opinion, is it fair to say that Luka Garza may be overrated when we talk about him finishing the college basketball season and potentially becoming an NBA prospect? I'll ask you first, John.
Well, Lindsay, when you watch him play and you watch the NBA, nobody posts somebody up time in, time out, time in. I mean, is he going to guard Anthony Davis? Is he going to go on the perimeter and guard somebody? No, he's not. And so he might have an opportunity, but he's got a lot of things he's got to develop. And then watch him run up and down the floor. This is a struggle for him to run up and down the floor, okay? So, I mean, you know, is he going to be the guy in the NBA that can do the high ball screen and then pop and make a three?
Yeah.
That's what these guys do nowadays.
Yeah, all day long.
So,
they run like gazelle, too.
I don't know if his value is on the next level.
Yeah.
I think his value is where he's at right now.
Mm-hmm. Terry, what do you think? Thank you for that, John. What do you think, Terry?
No, I think he's going to be a great college basketball player, but I think the thing is about the NBA with this new generation of ball being played, they're trying to get guys out of the paint. I mean, Luka Garza is probably the most efficient around the paint. And, you know, you got guards now posting up other guards. Like Luka needs his room. Jimmy Butler needs his room. Curry needs his space. I mean, they're trying to get guys about it, you know, like they got some high ball screens, but they really love space. Like now, even back in high school, we always talked about space. Keep the spacing. They need that's why they talked about Joel Embiid and Simmons maybe not working, because there's got to be some spacing. So they got shooters. So Luka Garza's outside shot definitely has to continue to improve, to find a spot on the roster. They're always going to find a spot for guys that can shoot the ball. But there aren't a lot of true centers. I mean, a lot of the centers are true to defense and rebounding. So I don't know if his role switches and he can kind of give you that offensive touch. Even a guy like Kevin Love, who had his back to the basket a lot in his days, he did it a little bit with LeBron, but that wasn't something that they really asked him to do, which is something that he excelled in coming in.
Yeah, very good, guys. And I'll say this finally before we move on to our next matchup. And, John, just so you'll be ready, you'll be on the clock with Wisconsin at Rutgers after I finish this comment. My statement about that is someone made a good point about, Xavier Tillman and what X did to Luka Garza last season. And Xavier, whether it was support or not, was a second-round draft pick. So if a second-round draft pick gave you the business like this, what do you think is going to happen when you try to transition to the NBA? And to John's point, can you do the pick and pop? To your point, as far as the other things going on with him, I just think that we're seeing a great college basketball player. And to John's point earlier, you say you may need to learn a foreign language, so we'll see. So with that, we got Michigan State and Iowa. Both Terry and John give the nod to Michigan State. John, I'll defer back to you. Let's talk about Friday, January 15th, 7 p.m. If everybody's healthy, Wisconsin will be at Rutgers. Wisconsin will be at the legendary Rack. And we'll see. Orlando's put the line up there for us. So what's your take on that, John?
Well, the spread has Rutgers getting 2. And I was a little bit surprised at that. I was surprised at that line. And the money line is in Wisconsin's favor. I mean, you have to bet $220 just to make 100. And with Rutgers, you have to bet you can get back $275 for betting 100. So, and the over and under is 135.5. I actually like Rutgers in this game. I like them to beat Wisconsin. Wisconsin is got some players that they're older than the Chicago Bulls.
Literally, that's true.
They are. I mean, they're and they need one another. The other guy needs the other guy to perform. I mean, you want to talk about 5 guys having to do the right thing all the time for them to be successful, and they're good at that. But when you can chip away at them and separate them from one another and break them down to their individual skills, I don't think that they have a guy that can stay with Harper. And I think Rutgers will win this game.
So you're saying when you put the players on the island, they get exposed and they won't be able to handle the matchup.
Yeah, they're, I mean, you have to take away the help, which is the reason that we're having basketball spread out the way it is, because you just can't leave and have help in the middle of the floor, a la Bobby Knight, who invented that kind of defense. You take away the help. That's what this basketball is all about today, taking away help and isolation. And if you do that to Wisconsin, I just think they're another team.
I got it. Terry, what's your take?
I kind of disagree, but I agree at the same time. That this one,
you can disagree with John respectfully.
Absolutely.
He's a nice guy. You can disagree with him respectfully. Terry's a nice guy. He's trying to be cool, but go ahead, Terry. You say I'm not feeling it. Go ahead.
I do. I think the biggest takeaway that I watched that Michigan-Wisconsin game very closely, and I think Michigan did a great job speeding Wisconsin up. And a lot of teams don't do that. Wisconsin's a team that they shoot 40% from the field this year, and they give up the least amount of points per game. At 62.7 points per game. So I think the thing is about Wisconsin, they don't beat themselves. They play tough defense, like the help defense that John mentioned. And the one thing I think I'm going to go Wisconsin in this one, just because I believe that Demetric Trice is going to be the best player on the court. I think Demetric Trice brings his team together. I think the Michigan game wasn't their best showing. Defensively, of course, Michigan getting a lot of runouts and scoring a ton of points. There was a point in the first half to about some time off in the second half where Michigan scored 43 points and Wisconsin scored 6. And right. I think that run just showed that Wisconsin can be vulnerable at times, but I think it's rarely shown. I think that Demetric Trice is going to get his guys going, and I think Wisconsin's going to win.
Very good. Before we get next up, and Terry, I'll let you be next up to start us off. We'll talk about Ohio State at Illinois next. But what I do want to add to both of your comments about Wisconsin is the fact that they were on the end of a historic loss, being part of Michigan's run with 3 top teams, beating them by 19 plus. That's a gut check. That is, check yourself. Let us get back to the lab. And I think whoever they play next, in this case, which is going to be Rutgers going to have another thing coming. So Ryan Harper Jr. and I talked to a lot of people early on in the beginning of the season. I said, I really wonder, and I hope that Rutgers isn't being overvaluated. Like they're giving them too much value. Like the stock, they put too much into their stock. But we'll see what can happen with that. So next we'll go to Terry. Terry, talk about the matchup between Ohio State and Illinois.
Well, we talked about the best, the highest points per game as a team with Iowa. Illinois is right there. So I think this game, a couple interesting stats that I think is going to be interesting when you talk about these two teams. I mean, Illinois is first in offensive rebounds, and Ohio State is number 4 in defensive rebounds. So I think that's just cool to point out. How Ohio State has a lot of, I call it like one and done possessions where they get one shot, team gets one shot and then they rebound and they're off and going. And Illinois gets a lot of opportunities with their offensive rebounds. So I think this game, I think Ohio State, after coming off that big win against Ron Harper and them, I think Ohio State, I'm going to give Ohio State the nod. I think they're a great team. They play together, and it's something we mentioned with Wisconsin, how they feed off of each other's energy. And I think Dwayne Washington Jr., he sometimes can be a little inconsistent, but I think he's a great basketball player, and I think he rises to the occasion whenever they need him. And I like what he brings, and I got Ohio State in this one.
I like that too. John, what do you think? You got Ohio State with Terry. Well, then, hold on. I got to add too, John, just so you know, Terry lives in Lansing, but he bleeds Buckeye blood. Okay?
I got that.
but not taking anything away from his objective team. Go ahead.
Not so fast, my friend. I like Illinois. I think Illinois is the second best team in the Big Ten.
Behind who, John?
What's that?
Behind who? Michigan?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Right now. And you don't know how I hate to say that.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It's so hard for me to say because Michigan State guy.
Yes.
But I like Illinois in this game. Ohio State's got a couple point guards that are sitting. They escaped it last night. Washington, I agree with Terry. He had his career high last night. He shot the ball well. But Illinois is really good. And I really like their coach, Bruce Underwood.
Yeah.
Brad
Underwood.
This guy has won games wherever he's been. In fact, I think at Chattanooga, he won over 60 games in a 2-year period. Mm-hmm. But he's another – this COVID year is kind of strange. I mean, here I'm talking about Illinois being the second best team, and they get beat by Maryland the last time they played. So with that being said, I think that the guards at Illinois are too good with Ohio State's injuries at the guard position. And I think that Illinois goes to the glass, and I think they come back after they got beat. I think they've done fingertip push-ups and ran the stairs and had their asses chewed.
Yeah.
And they're going to be chomping at the bit. I'm going to take Illinois in this game.
Okay, fine. Both of you guys go with Illinois. I'll put you on deck for our next one as I make these comments, John. You're going to be up next for Michigan and Minnesota. I'll get you ready for that. But what I will say, I totally agree with 2 points you made about Illinois. One, they're one of the best teams in the Big Ten. If you go back to the end of last season before COVID hit, they were scary. I was most concerned about them, especially versus Michigan State, because these guys were just on it, and they have this belief in themselves, and they got a great history to connect to. Also, I would say in this COVID era, what we're finding is that the big X factor on teams is the bench. Not the bench play, John. Not the bench play, but it's the bench activity. How live they are. And Michigan is kind of setting the tone. So I think whether you're on the road or not, it doesn't really matter because you're in a arena. So it's all about what kind of energy. And I've seen teams, I just use Michigan State as an example by being at the games where there's a flat bench, where, you know, that momentum isn't there, but you turn around and you compare to the hype that comes with that. So speaking of that, Michigan having one of the most active benches in college basketball right now. Tell us, John, your take on Michigan State and Minnesota.
Well, I really like what Juwan Howard's doing. Phil Martelli, Sade Washington, Howard Isley. He's got a great coaching staff, and he used his NBA experience, and he accepted and embraced the transfer portal. And he went and got him a point guard, which he needed, and he got Shawnee Brown, who just took Trice to task. His strength just eliminated Trice from the game. They are defending better than any team I'm watching right now. And then when you put that aside, they have Brown is getting to the basket from the point. Wagner is, if his head is right and he doesn't get all upset with himself, he can get a bucket when he wants to. He can shoot the ball and he can take it to the rack. And Livers is playing good. I think Michigan, I have them as the third best team in the country right now.
Wow. So you got Gonzaga, Baylor, Michigan.
Yep, I do.
Okay, I like that. Terry, what you got?
Yeah, I agree with that. I got Michigan in this one too. I think they're not only the best team in the Big Ten, but I do agree that they're a top 3 team in the country right now. I think with Livers, I think a lot of people threw him under the bus about the whole, the little disagreement he had with Coach Howard. But just to see how his play has been a lot better, they're all buying in as a team. I think Wagner's game, the more and more he gets better, I can see. We mentioned like Luka Garza's game translating into the NBA. I see his game actually being maybe him adding something to teams in the NBA, the way he can shoot the ball, the way he can drive. That's pretty much what a lot of teams ask out of players, to be able to shoot. I mean, the defense in the NBA is kind of non-existent as we speak, but but still though, the way he can shoot and also the way he can shoot and drive it into the basket, I think is very key too. And not only the bench energy and how they're able to commit to team defense. I stress the importance of team defense with how MSU needs to play on Garza and how Wisconsin plays. I think Michigan has learned the ability to speed teams up. I think that's very key when teams get into their mojo and get into their sets. They get into I saw a little 2-2-1 pressure on Tuesday on Wisconsin. I saw different looks that they give you to speed you up, and I think they're going to speed up Marcus Carr in Minnesota. I think that Michigan is going to get another win.
Yeah, I just want to add. I don't think anyone can disagree with both you guys' take that Michigan, like you say, John, is one of the best teams in the country. What Juwan Howard is doing in transition, his NBA experience, and the buy-in, we're getting this kind of. And it may be too soon to make this kind of comparison, but this Alabama Nick Saban type complete buy-in from these players. And you mentioned Shawnee Brown, who is physically big. You talk about Hunter Dickinson. My goodness, when I see these guys play, and I think of Michigan State, for example, because of my connection to them, I always think Julius Marble is going to get some clock this game because you're going to need a big body to go up and match against these guys. But I totally agree with that. So I think it's back on you. I think it's on you, Terry. I'm going to defer to you as we get our last of the Big Ten picks. We're going to talk about Indiana at Michigan State. A game that would have been Sunday is going to be postponed. You can almost believe that no matter what, that the NCAA is going to get those games in for the Big Ten so they can be, eligible for the tournament. So the game won't be Sunday, but why don't you guys tell me what your take on Michigan State versus Indiana?
Yeah, I think the one thing that I didn't know, Indiana does, they are number 4 in points allowed, which shows that they are playing some tough defense. So I think the biggest thing with MSU, I think this game is finding some way or someone needs to create offense. I think that's the key. I think they're in need of a point guard. They're in need of someone to get guys going. Part of the reason is Cassius Winston. It's his fault. I'm gonna blame him every day in a good way, though. That's just how good he is. So I think part of the reason they need to find a way to generate offense. I think, coming out with some energy, like you mentioned, the bench energy. I mean, guys have to learn that although you may not play a single minute in this ball game, you can still have an emotional impact on the guys that are playing. And that goes for, guys that are over there, Steve Smith's son, Izzo, when he gets back, Matty Sissoko. I mean, guys coming in there, just bring energy. I mean, you guys are young guys, bring that energy, help your guys play. I think Aaron Henry's going to have a good night. I think it's going to be a good game for them, and I see MSU winning this one.
Okay, we got MSU over Indiana. I'll go to you, John. Let's know what you're thinking now.
Well, what I've been waiting for all year long is when is Gabe Brown going to take the ball on the wing? When is he going to shot fake, drive in, and dunk on somebody?
Throw it down, yeah.
I'm tired of watching him just sit there and shoot. When are you going to be the player that you are? When are you going to stand up and be counted as a basketball player? I'm waiting for him.
Yeah.
And I'm waiting for Rocket Watts to go back and defend like he did last year.
Mm-hmm.
The boy was strong and fast and could defend the ball.
Freshman.
But Aaron Henry, too. When are you going to learn that it's a 40-minute game? You can't take 5 minutes, 6 minutes off. The game that they lost, Purdue, it was like 9 minutes to go in the first half, and he ain't taking a shot yet. What the hell kind of basketball player are you? Mm-hmm. And you said you were confused about whether to go to the NBA. You made the right choice, young man. Get your ass back in school, and if you don't start playing the way you're capable, you're going to be there next year, too.
Let me ask you this question, John. You talk about waiting. If you're waiting at a valet, you may wait for a long time, but you know your car is coming. So you talk about waiting for Gabe Brown to be the player he can be, Aaron Henry. Do you think that wait is going to be forever, or will you actually see that car come when you can see it happen, when you can see them make that transition?
We have seen this Tom Izzo before. He has got to be the biggest pain in the ass to those players right now that they've ever seen in their life. And he's in that stage right now where he is just beating their ass, knocking them down. Mm-hmm. Then he's going to hit that spot where he starts bringing them back. And when they start hitting that turn, when you see Gabe Brown take the ball to the rack and dunk it, then you can say to yourself, Michigan and Michigan State's going to be a hell of a game.
Yeah, I think we all have short memories. I have to agree with you, John, when it comes to the basketball season. When you see a team like Michigan State struggle, if it wasn't for COVID, they would have a non-conference schedule. You'll still see them struggle. It would be those games against Duke that they would drop. But like you said, Izzo always works his way, and by the time it's tournament time, they're at a high clip. Looking at the time, we're going to get close. John, let me just say, man, I can speak for Terry when I say you have been such a welcome addition to the show. Your insight, your energy, man, you're just too cool for yourself, man. You can't help it. But we appreciate it. And I made a note of all these predictions, so it's going to be some time when we got to get on and talk and say who was right, who was wrong, and for what reason. But I want to say I thank you for that. Our listeners on the podcast include the Streets of Talking podcast network that's played all throughout the country. They appreciate you, and Terry and I both do. So with that, we want to thank you, and we look forward to having you back next with the
I'd love to come back
picks.
anytime. I'd love
That's right. So thank you so much for that. And with that, Terry and I'll take these next few minutes, and we'll sign off. We'll see you next time, John. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Lindsey. Good night, Terry.
Hey, right. You too.
Good. That's right. We got a great experience. How cool was that, Terry, huh?
I mean, he just knew a lot of things that I like to say I keep up with my facts, man, but I feel like every time he gave his take, I learned something new. And I love learning. I have a growth mindset. And so I just love growing and hearing things that honestly I wouldn't have thought of and I wouldn't have known unless I spoke to him. So it was cool.
Well, Terry, you don't know, I mentioned you in my Monday Motivation when I talked about America and I talked about, what role do we play in this hypocrisy? And I mentioned you in a positive way when I said, we need to focus on the next generation, and that included Terry McCord. So you sat there with a very wise man, very experienced man. We talked about his background as a basketball coach, being a Vegas insider legitimately. I mean, I know his story and I know what's going on. And you held your ground. It wasn't a fight, but you were confident with the information you looked at. You were respectful. And I think you brought great balance to what that, so you should feel good about that. So I'm looking at the time, man, and we've done great, man. We've talked about all these great topics. We've talked about college basketball. We do want to encourage you guys to support us in the Big Ten picks. That'll be a part of our show going forward. And when you support that, you support great opportunities for the SPS Edge Show, as well as Terry McCord and myself. But a few more things to talk about in the very short time that we have. High school football. We were able to see Belleville versus Cass Tech. SPS was in the building for that. I appreciate you being online when I was down there. It was a decent day and decent weather, but Belleville just took full advantage of that. Mind you, the King twins were out, who are on their way to Penn State. Many could argue that would have changed the game, but I don't know if the outcome would have been different. Next, we're going to see we got the regionals coming up, and then we got the finals at Ford Field on January 23rd, and we're hoping that we can get a word from MHSA and the governor's office that will lead to some basketball. So as I get ready to wrap up, Terry, is there anything you want to add before we get off tonight?
No, just a reminder, everybody in the area, stay safe in your cities. Pray for peace and, sound days. Everybody, being safe in whatever they're doing, whether they're downtown, because a lot of people forget there are still businesses and jobs downtown. And, just make sure that those people are safe and that they feel safe. Not only, because it's very important to feel safe in your home and, and to be able to do what you need to do every day and not feeling worried about someone coming to get you. That's very key. A lot of people love feeling secure and safe. So other than that, I think we're good.
I think we're really good. I want to, again, thank Orlando Watkins for helping us with this excellent platform. He's continued to help push our show. I want to shout out to Canada if you get to hear us and what's going on. Again, we want to thank our basketball insider, John, for joining us. You'll see him next week. So with that, this is Lindsey Huddleston on behalf of Terry McCord Jr. for the SPS Edge Show. Thank you guys. Thanking Orlando Watkins. Thanking John, our basketball insider. And we'll see you guys next time. Take care.